Right this way, my friends. Welcome in. Anywhere you like. Willkommen, bienvenue and welcome. Ik ben een conferencia, je suis vos compère. I'm your ghost host. Now, before we begin, who here believes in ghosts? Who doesn't believe in ghosts?
Here.
Okay, and who's here because you just got dragged onto the tour by your friends, family, girlfriend, brother, sister,
I know.
daughter? Who was dragged onto this tour? No one? Well, you? Okay, I like your confidence. Now, Queen, after 1,001 peacetime crossings, 72 wartime crossings, and over 57 recorded deaths. Since her arrival here in Long Beach back in 1967, she's gained a very unique reputation of intrigue and speculation for the paranormal. The stories I will tell you are all real that happened to our guests and crew. The two types of hauntings we have on the Queen Mary revolve on two bases. The first one is a residual haunt, someone's memory. This ties in with the theory that we are all balls of energy on this earth. And as we experience life, happiness, and sadness, those memories are left behind and captured like a footprint, and often replayed here and there on the ship. The second one is called a conscious haunting, where the spirit, the entity, knows what it's doing, will go after you. It's aware of its surroundings to terrorize you. That is what you see in Hollywood, TV, and everything in social media. And we have a few encounters like that here. Now, my first story takes place 1989, here in the Mauritania room. Back during our sailing days, this was the third-class garden lounge, or wicker lounge. But in 1989, this was now a banquet space. So two employees walked through the door to set up for this small space for a private party. As they entered, they see a young woman sitting in a chair, looking at the marquee panel. Not moving, just sitting there. Both employees just looked at her, looked at each other and went, okay, and they started setting up the room. A few short minutes later, the manager walks in and starts asking who the young woman was. Why was she escorted out? And both employees responded with, she was here when we came in. She wasn't bothering us, we were bothering her. So the manager kindly walks up to her and says, ma'am, I want to ask you to leave since we're setting up for a private event. Nothing. No acknowledgement, no blink. So she tries again. Ma'am, if you don't leave, I'll call security. This area is closed to the public and we're setting up for a private event. Still nothing. So on the third try, she now goes to the telephone. And this is where it gets very interesting. All three employees now report seeing the same thing. As she picks up the telephone, the young woman and the chair she's sitting in vanished into thin air. This apparition lasted almost 10 minutes, the longest ever recorded and sighted on board the ship. This young woman was described wearing a 1940s dress, sitting in the furniture that would have been in this room back in the 30s. Now, who this young woman was, we don't know. We know she didn't die on board. So perhaps she's a residual memory of someone who traveled on board as a third-class passenger, and she passed away long after, and she was reliving her life, and our crew members got to see that happen live. My next story takes place on this passageway in first class. Back in 2019, one of our security guards at 2:30 in the morning was checking his phone, typing away, texting, updating Facebook, making sure the ship was safe. As he makes his way towards the travel bureau, he notices a young child was walking alone at 2:30 in the morning. So he puts the phone away, starts walking towards the kid. As he gets closer, he notices that the child is transparent. He walked right through his thigh, continued down the passageway, and faced into the Mauritania room. A lot of our occurrences for our security and housekeepers match the same type of description with several spirits. On average, we lose 10 employees a year due to paranormal activity. That's mainly within security and housekeepers. It's the opposite with the attractions, surprisingly. Every time we get a new ghost sighting, a new tour guide appears. Now, with all the haunted stuff, we were placed on the top 10 most haunted locations in the world by Time Magazine, along with the Stanley Hotel in Colorado. So, the stories I will tell you are, again, true facts and legends that have appeared over the years. So, take a few moments to get up, walk around, take pictures. We're going to be heading out shortly towards our next location.
What?
And then on the other side, the suites as you walk down the passageway are all named after famous people from the war, history, and one very particular passenger, Sir Winston Churchill. Now, during the war, this was his mobile command office. He traveled on board the ship 7 times, 5 during the war, 2 post-war to come to visit the United States. And he stayed in M119, now known as the Churchill Suite. Now, this room is one of the best rooms we have to offer. During the war, this ship was a troop ship. He stayed in M119. He signed off on a lot of important orders, plans, positions in the drawing room directly above your head. He even used the bathtub in that suite to plan out the invasion of Normandy, or D-Day. Now, my story takes place not during the war, but actually here in Long Beach in the early 2000s. A housekeeper was going down the passageway, making sure the rooms were checked out, cleaned out, and ready to be checked in that afternoon. As she approaches M119, she starts getting a very strong sense of cigar smoke. She kind of makes her way to the door, knocks, room service, no response. She knocks again. Still nothing. So she now makes her presence known and says she's going to come in. And then as she walks into the sitting room, she sees a large gentleman sitting in a chair, smoking a cigar, relaxing the afternoon away. Now she calmly approaches him and says, "Sir, you're not allowed to be in here. And can you please put that cigar out? This is a non-smoking hotel." Well, the president actually startled the gentleman. He got up, gave her this weird look. He took a puff of cigar and vanished into the painting of Winston Churchill. Yes. So, my friends, if you do ever get the opportunity to rent and stay in the Churchill Suite, it's one of the best rooms we have to offer, and it's rich with decor, artwork, and furniture, and of course, a very special roommate, the Prime Minister himself. The story? I think I was told around 2002. So, about 20 years ago. The most recent sighting for Winston Churchill was actually 2019 Thanksgiving weekend. So I like to say he likes to visit during the holidays. That was actually a sighting by me. I actually was going down the passageway when I got the strong scent. I called the hotel front desk. I'm like, "Is anyone staying in the Churchill Suites?" They said, "No, actually, no, it's vacant this weekend." I was like, "Okay, Churchill's here to visit." Now this ties in with the whole theory of the residual haunts, because it's not just a memory. It could be a scent, a sound, an animal, anything that ties with your personality. Now, cigar smoke was heavily attached with Sir Winston because he was a heavy smoker and drinker. 2 bottles of champagne in the morning, 10 cigars a day, a bottle of brandy at lunch, and another 2 bottles at dinner. Heavy drinker. A strong man and a strong leader. So if you do ever get a chance to stay in there, please be kind and say hello to me. Right this way. Standing in the hotel lobby, this was the first class purchase desk where the guests can come on board to check in, go to their rooms, and thus be settled in. The focus of my story takes place here with this piano. Now this piano's been on board for several years. It's called the first, second, third class lounges at home. Now it's here in the first class lobby. Now throughout the years, something very peculiar happens. Late at night, early in the morning, the agents and the guests will often hear a soft melody come through the piano itself as if someone's playing it. They'll lean over, check, no one. The bench underneath would slide out like as if someone's getting ready to perform. This happened for several years, and my first encounter with him was actually last year when we reopened back in April of 2023, doing the exact same tour at 2 in the afternoon. I tell the story, we do a loop of the hotel, and once we enter through the port side, everyone, including myself, hear 5 distinct notes come from the piano. So that means our president pianist is back to perform once again for our guests. Now there's another ghost that ties in with not just here, but she's actually seen the bar rooms, the bars, the restaurants, and here in the lobby, wherever music was playing. This lady is known as the Lady in White. She's often seen dancing alone in the ballroom in a beautiful wedding gown. Now who is she? How does she appear? Is a mystery. Because she didn't die on board. No one of her description, age, height, has ever died on board the Queen Mary. So paranormal investigators and historians kind of piece together something that might have caused this apparition to appear. Because after the war, we served as the bride and baby shuttle, reuniting the war brides with their GI husbands from Europe to Canada and America. Now the only way to get off the ship was for your husband to be at the dock, present with your marriage certificates, license, immigration papers, all in order. If anything was misspelled, if anything was missing, you were not getting off, unfortunately. So perhaps the Lady in White is the amalgamation of all the war brides that never got a chance to meet their husbands. So now she wanders the ship alone, dancing, waiting for her long lost love. So gentlemen, she's single, and she's one hell of a dancer. Right this way. Oh yeah, she's 90 years old. Now as a tour guide, my favorite question is not about history, but actually from the guests. Is my room haunted? Will I get spooked tonight? Which rooms are truly haunted? And my honest answer is, I don't know. Because a lot of our hauntings, spirits, are all just random, sporadic. And usually it's a one-off or multiple occurrence. One story takes place in the early 90s with a pilot who stayed on board. Just on the left, in the front of the ship. Decides to turn in early for the night, so he goes to bed. Pulls the sheets over himself and starts dozing off. He starts hearing some noise coming from the desk next to the bed. So he wakes up and he sees a shadowy figure riding a leather. The pilot looks at him for a few moments. The shadowy figure looks down at him. They both look at each other for a good few moments before the pilot said, "I'm dreaming," and he rolled over. He's woken up a few hours later by some loud noises coming from the bathroom. Being the tired guy that he was, he just went, "Tomorrow." Upon the next morning, he finds out that his toiletry bag and luggage were rummaged through, tossed into the toilet, bathtub, trash, sink, everywhere. Turns out whatever was in that room with him didn't like sharing a room. Now my next actual sighting takes place January of this year. Our most recent ghost sighting and picture was taken, and I have it. It was by a guest and her mom who were staying on this passenger just to the right, halfway down. And around 2:30 in the morning, she gets this weird feeling that something wasn't right. Something was in the room. So she wakes her mom up and she says she's gonna take some quick photos. So she pulls the phone out, takes 5 rapid photos with the flash. The first 2, nothing. Third one, something. And the last 2, nothing. She blows it up, improves the grain and all the editing, and lo and behold, she captured a ghost bellboy walking in with pieces of luggage. Clear as day, one of the best photos I have ever seen. You can see the jacket, his hat cocked to the left, and he's walking in with 2 pieces of suitcases. And I have that photo if you want to see that at the end of the tour. It's one of the best photos we have. Now the staircase behind me is the focus of our next story. Now we're standing in 3rd class. The ship was divided amongst 3 classes, so first class was in the center, top to bottom, second in the back, and 3rd class, bless their souls, were at the front. Because we did it on smoothness of ride. So that meant 3rd class was going up a 60-foot wave and coming down while crossing the Atlantic every couple of moments. And this staircase has a very major design flaw. It is facing forward at a 45-degree angle. So you can easily you could be going up the stairs can go vertical and drop dramatically beneath you, which led to 2 deaths. The first was in 1938. An elderly woman was walking down the stairs when the ship dramatically dropped beneath her. She was launched and she broke her neck on the girder above my head. The second one happened back in 1948 A gentleman by the name of George Sidney Wayman was going from this level down to B deck on the next flight of stairs. The same occurrence happened. The ship took a pitch, dropped beneath him, and he fell. He was found dead a few moments later by stewards who were walking into the area, and now his spirit lingers in this space, known as the Man in Black. And I'm not referencing Johnny Cash, but he's often seen floating up the stairs, quietly, just floating up. Once he gets to the landing, he stays there for a few moments, and disappears. A lot of our guests and employees have all heard mystery footsteps when they walk down these stairs, following behind them, or on the stairs above. Late at night, some of our crew members who will have to be doing the security or the tours, they can be going down to close up, they're going down the stairs, they'll hear following them behind them, they'll stop, look around, no one. So, if you do come back, keep your eyes open, you might see him. Now he's not here to hurt you, he's just wandering the ship as a guest. Right. Now our next location will be the fire station, so please right this way. Now, ladies and gentlemen, as the Queen Mary was launched back in 1934, she set sail in 36. We were one of the safest ships in the world with an advanced firefighting system, 38 watertight doors, watertight bulkheads that went way above the waterline. We were the advancement of the Titanic, but that still didn't prevent us from having slips, trips, and falls. And on this day, June 10th, 1966, at 4:40 a.m., the Queen Mary was enveloped in a very dense patch of fog. The captain ordered all watertight doors to be closed, just in case we ran aground, collided, or collide with a stationary object. Now these watertight doors take less than 35 seconds to close. 30 seconds of building up pressure, sound the alarms, alert the crew around that these doors will be closing. Only 5 seconds to go from open to close, exerting 700 psi, enough to break a limb or even death. You do not ever want to get caught in one of these. So at 4:45, the watch officer is looking up on the panel. 1 through 38 are slowly lighting up from red to green, but one door. Door 13, which is located in engine room number 2, starboard side and prop shaft alley. Now the officer just assumes faulty motor or the sensor didn't go off. So he called the engineers to go investigate. At 4:50, they go down to check it out, and they make a very unfortunate discovery. A young 18-year-old engineer was caught inside door 13, crushed, facing aft, with his arms pinned against his side. They released him from the door, gave him a shot of morphine, and then they took him to the ship's hospital, where he was pronounced dead. Now, the circumstances of his death are still a huge mystery to us to this day, because there were no witnesses, not a single person in the alley to see what actually happened. But there are 3 theories that investigators, historians have all kind of pieced together with the clues to what was written, stated, and what was going on. Now, the first theory was he went in from one compartment to the other to grab tools, because the log said there was tools at his feet. And the only way you can open these doors once they close is by pushing the lever. It would release the hydraulics and open the door. Now the downside is once you release the lever, the door is going to automatically shut from wherever you left it. So perhaps he pushed it open, got his tools, and on his way back, misjudged the timing and got caught. The second one is something I don't agree with, because it's ignorance. I've been going to sea for 7 years now, and the one thing they tell me is, when I sign on the ship, is don't play with the watertight doors, ever. If you want to lose a limb, or if you want to die, go ahead, but don't risk it. And this theory revolves with him playing a game of chicken, hopping in between the door to see how many times he can get through before it made a complete shut. No prudent mariner or engineer would ever do such an ignorant thing, so I quickly and easily dismissed this one. Now the third one's much more darker, much more sinister, because it ties in with the political atmosphere of that year. This was only his 10th voyage on the Queen Mary. He joined May of that year. But at the same time, there was a seaman strike in Southampton. The ship was not sailing, the crew were not working. So perhaps, while the crew were on strike, this 18-year-old thought it was the best time to apply to work on the Cunard's most prestigious ocean liner in hopes for a good career. Crossed the picket line, got the job, and started sailing once we got back underway. And our engineers didn't like that. They took that as a sign of disrespect. They called them a scab. The only way to deal with a scab? Kill it. What better way of doing it? Using the weather for the excuse. Fog, shut the doors, stuff them in, leave the scene, mum's the word. But to this day, we'll never truly know what happened. All just speculation and theories. And his spirit still lingers down there. You can go visit him after the tour if you would like. The first sighting happened back in the 1970s. One night, security guard was going down that space to go close up. She's turning off the lights, making her rounds, when she noticed a young engineer wearing brown overalls and a white shirt covered in grease. She called out to him and said, "Sir, you're not allowed to be in here. We're closing up already. Let's go." The young man said, "Okay," and started walking with her. She got a weird feeling, so she looks back. He's still there. And as they're walking towards the exit, she wanted to ask what's his name. So she looked back, and he was gone. Now, she didn't think much of it. She thought maybe he took another exit. So she went to her manager and says, "Hey, who's the new guy? Never seen him before." The manager already knew who she was talking about because he already knew who died down there. But he still played along and said, "Can you describe him?" He goes, "New guy, about yay big, wearing brown overalls." Is he new? And he goes, "Well, I hate to break it to you, but you probably saw the guy that died there 10 years ago." After that night, she refused to go down there by herself. It took her a year to go back. After that year, she still took 3 other security guards just in case. Front, back, and top, just to make sure no spooky business was happening. I had an encounter with this young man before I even started working here back in 2016. I didn't know who he was at the time. I snuck into the engine room, don't tell my boss. I snuck in there around 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock to take night photography. As I got my camera set up, looking down towards the door, I see a shadow hop over the railing and onto the platform I'm standing on. I knew something wasn't right when I didn't hear this. Footsteps. So I looked up from the camera, and that shadowy figure was gone. So that's when I told myself, time to go home. And I cried myself to sleep. It wasn't until I joined the crew back in 2019, I finally found out who he was, what's his name, how he passed away. And now every morning when I do go open up the engine room, I go ahead and say, "Good morning, how are you? Have a good day at work." Because he's still one of our engineers, one crew, always a family. Right this way. 1949. As the Queen Mary was traveling across the Atlantic, Senior Second Officer William E. Stark, in no relation to Tony Stark of Tony Stark Industries, was being relieved from the bridge that evening. Now, he was invited by the staff captain and a few of the junior officers to have a nice pre-dinner drink before going down. So Stark was the first one to arrive in the staff captain's cabin, one deck down. He sat down, waited for a bit, got a little bored. So he called the steward and said, "Can you find me a bottle of gin?" The steward said, "Of course." The steward looked at the staff captain's room, nothing. He went over to the master's cabin on the starboard side, opened the cabinet, found the bottle marked gin, didn't sniff it, didn't check it, just read the label, said, "Gin, perfect." Went over and handed it to Stark. Stark then poured himself a nice big serving of gin and tonic, and upon taking the first big gulp, he found out something wasn't right. What he drank was not gin, but carbon tetrachloride, a very strong cleaning agent that we use to clean our uniforms. Now Stark laughed it off actually. He just said, "I think I just poisoned myself." Laughed it off, and the other officer said, "You should go to the hospital." He said, "Nah, I'll be fine." They went down to dinner, everything was fine and dandy. The next morning, he wasn't fine and dandy. In excruciating pain due to the poisoning, he was down there for 2 days until we arrived in Southampton, where he was taken to a hospital ashore and pronounced dead due to the injuries. Now this accident was just a freak accident. No murder, no intent of manslaughter, just a freak accident. The captain just happened to have an empty bottle that he had finished the gin, poured his cleaning agent so he can have it on hand to clean his uniform. So nothing's fishy, just a freak accident. Now his spirit still lingers on the ship. He's often seen roaming the hotel and up in the wheelhouse. A recent sighting actually happened before the pandemic. One night, a bride was walking around the ship, kind of a little lost, trying to find main hall. So she enters this area and she sees a gentleman in a black uniform with 2 stripes, and she approached him and says, "Sir, can you point me to main hall?" And Stark said, "Of course. Just go down the passageway, take the main staircase up." And she said, "Thank you." Looked at his name tag and said, "Stark. Thank you, Mr. Stark." A few hours later, she goes to our manager and says, "Can you tell Mr. Stark thank you for helping me out?" And that's when he said, "Who?" "Stark. Officer Stark. He died back in 49. So if you do wander around the ship today and you do see him, please say hello. I haven't seen him in a while. I hope he's doing fine. Right this way. Haunted rooms on board the ship with a very unique, dark, and mysterious history. Now the first part of the story takes place around 1953. An unknown man was found dead in that exact same room due to an unknown cause. I'm saying unknown because his name, cause of death, where he was going to, where he came from, is lost in history. That's all that was found in our logbooks, and that's that. Let's flash forward to 1963. A young woman by the name of W.B. Berry was staying in that exact same room, crossing the Atlantic from Southampton to New York. She's going to bed, so she pulls the covers over herself and starts dozing off. A few moments later, the sheets are just pulled right off. She wakes up, pulls them back up, and once again, the sheets are pulled off. So she wakes up and opens her eyes and sees a shadow of a man looking down at her, looking. She screams and calls for assistance by calling the steward, who then runs in and assists her. She said that there was a man in her room, so she called security, check where he was, find him. She was such in a panic that she didn't know what to say. So they did a full sweep under the bed, the closets, the bathroom. They didn't find anyone. The steward even stated in his log that he didn't see anyone go in, out, or be near B340 throughout that night. And that was the first ever recorded haunting on board the ship while we were still sailing. Now in the 1980s, this room is now a standard hotel room with queen-size bed, walk-in closet, living room area, the works, one of the best rooms we can offer. And the calls start coming in again. The guests are now reporting that the faucets are turning on and off by themselves, the lights flickering, and the portholes opening and closing on their own. They'll call the front desk and say, "Hey, I know you're haunted. Can you turn off the special effects though?" And we'll respond with, "We don't have special effects." "Yeah, you don't." And they'll hang up, call an hour later. "I want to go to bed. Please turn off the special effects." Again, we don't have special effects. This went on for several years into the 90s, that guests and crew members refused to go into that room by themselves. Because during the daytime, the crew members will walk in, make the bed, put the sheets, they'll step out for about 30 seconds to grab towels and toiletries. Once they go back in, the entire room's a mess, like the tornado went through. This happened for several years, so we just decided, all right, let's shut the room down. And it stayed dormant until 2018, when we finally decided to remarket it as B340, the paranormal experience. The next scary part of this room, the price tag. $1,000 a night. And a waiver for no refunds. Because we knew something was going to happen. Everyone wanted something to happen. So we gave you Ouija board, crystal ball, and even instructions for the Bloody Mary in the bathroom. And the first 2 years of this room being opened, it was a hit. Some people always got things. Paranormal activity was always being seen. The average checkout time though, 2:30 in the morning. No one actually stayed the full night. I meet up there with one of my guests who was staying that night on my tour, and I said, I'll give you $20 if I see you tomorrow morning. Didn't see him next morning. I went over to the front desk and they said they left at like 1:30. Now the hauntings of this room are attributed to one very unique spirit by the name of Walter. Now is that his real name? We don't know. But that's the name he gives us. And Walter doesn't like it when you stay in that room. So let's go take a peek, shall we?
Closer to the wall, so for $3,000 for the room, we'll see.
The first class pool. Now this room is very unique in its own right because it has something very paranormal attached to it. Right underneath his feet, yeah, there you go. Get your fit. Right underneath his feet is the vortex. One deck down in the changing rooms. This is the doorway between our world and their world. How the spirits can come into our realm to interact with us. Now, mediums, investigators, and those who are very in tune with the paranormal and spiritual aspect of it all agree that this room is a conduit. From the quartz and mother of pearl ceiling to the salt water in the pool, which is a perfect conduit for the paranormal. Over the years, guests have all reported hearing noises, wet footprints, laughing, people talking, even shadows moving around the balconies. And there's one particular spirit. She's known as Jackie, a very famous, very interactive, and very powerful spirit. She's often seen in the pool playing with our guests. Back in the early 2010s, we'll take tours in this space, and guests will often report feeling a cold little hand grab theirs, as if when they're standing, looking into the room and listening to the tour. She's very interactive. Investigators will go in, use microphones, recordings. They'll talk to her. She loves playing nursery rhymes, singing nursery rhymes, and playing hide and seek. A recent recording that I heard was actually back around taken 2018 by my friend who's a professional ghost hunter and investigator. The recording starts with, "Good morning, Jackie. It's Uncle Brian." And immediately she responds with, "You're not my uncle." She's a smart and very spunky little kid. She loves interacting with the children. She's often seen in the hotel, on sun deck, in the restaurants, and even off the ship. Back in the 80s, early 90s, that white dome used to house the Spruce Goose, which was Howard Hugh's massive wooden airplane. One night, the security guard was going through that space, locking up and turning off the lights. As he approaches the plane, he sees a little girl walking on the wing, as if she was walking on a tightrope. He called out to her and said, "Please, hey, get down from there, you're gonna fall." And she responds with, "Okay," and jumps off the plane. And upon landing on the cement, disappears. She's the only spirit to ever be seen off the Queen Mary. She's very powerful. Now, how she appeared is a big mystery to us because we never had a child drown, die, or get killed in either of our pools. Or even on the ship, we never had a girl of 7 years old. Despite what Facebook, Instagram, YouTube will say, she's a very unique one. She just appears. I like to say she's the spirit of the Queen Mary, embodied in an energetic young girl. Now, take a few moments, look in the pool, take pictures. If you do see anything looking back at you, that's just a reflection, don't worry.
Is that pool being used?
Not anymore.
Oh.
We emptied the pool back in '83. Yeah. We stopped going around. Reserve. The dates and the deaths you saw on that wall are all in chronological order from beginning to end. Wow. Now the pictures, those are not them. Oh. Aiden did try his best to find a picture or the picture of the person, but Ancestry.com doesn't work with us sometimes. So we still, every name, every date, cause of death are accurate to its official, even the voyage number. The first death on board Queen Mary was on our maiden voyage. Able-bodied seaman A.J. Golding was scrubbing the sun decks on the starboard side. Around 2:30 in the morning, he went up, grabbed his bucket and his mop after scrubbing one area, stepped in the puddle and slid. Fell back, cracked his head. He was the first death on board the ship. We had a funeral at sea for him, and we notified his family that following afternoon. Now the last death happened on our last great cruise in November of 1967, as she was on her way here to Long Beach. That was a baker by the name of Lawrence who died by heat stroke because as we crossed the equator, the ship did not have AC. We were circulating hot South Atlantic air, thus making the ship be a nice, toasty, almost 100 degrees, even hotter in the kitchens. So as we make our way back out, look at the names, and you'll see how it starts from Voyage 1 to 1001, right this way. Right, this way, please watch your step and head all the way towards the front.
You got the ocean bouncing around in here. Look, there was money down there.
There's a couple of people throwing money down there.
Now, my friends, welcome to the rope locker. This area is at the very front of the ship, as well as the area to our darkest day in history. Now, during the war, the Queen Mary was a troop ship. Over 4 years, she carried 800,000 troops to the front lines. We even set the record for the most souls ever on a single voyage at 16,683 souls on board this ship at one time. Now, the routine was, once we left port, we had an escort leaving New York. But once we passed the sea buoy and were up to speed, we were on our own for 4 days at the mercy of the North Atlantic and German U-boats. Once we arrived out to Ireland, we finally met the Royal Navy escorts, and we were safely allowed to slow down and enter Southampton. But on this unfateful day, October of 1944, the Queen Mary was doing a regular convoy as she arrived to New York, Ireland. The ship was zigzagging left and right every 10 minutes, steaming 32 knots to avoid any submarine torpedo that might have been launched at us. Now the escorts were instructed to keep well clear of the Queen Mary. The ship is 1,000 feet long, it takes 10 miles to stop. We need breathing room. As we're coming to starboard, we noticed that one ship, HMS Curacao, a small World War I cruiser, was now on a collision course with us. We quickly broke radio silence, sounded the alarm, told them to speed up, get out of the way. But this massive 81,000 gross ton liner quickly caught up with the Curacao and cut it like butter, sending down 330 sailors to a watery grave. And that happened just at the front, 2 decks down at the waterline. Now the impact was not felt on the ship. We were going too fast, and our size, most of the crew and a good chunk of the soldiers didn't even know we collided with someone until they saw the wreckage half a mile off our stern. But after impact, we were still ordered to never stop. We kept sailing on to Southampton. The convoy broke off and went and collected the remaining 105 sailors. And now, we send our investigators down below. They'll send their microphones, their EVPs, and see what they can find. They all come back with very similar sounds. Water rushing in, the hull rending, breaking and cracking, and even screams of cries for help. If they didn't die here, they had to meet our massive 18 propellers at the back end of the ship. And that's where a lot of guests often said they can see body parts floating in the tank, strangely, or a weird sense of unease when they go into the propeller box. Now, I had an encounter in this space several years ago. A ghost. I used to do the 11 to 1 a.m. paranormal ship walks. I know, best time for ghosts. It was pitch black in this room because I did the same thing. I'll turn off the lights. The only light coming was from the moon directly above the hatch, lighting up my outline right there. As I'm telling the story of the Curacao, everyone is standing over here, scared and just waiting for an easy escape. When they all noticed a shadowy figure come out of the wall and stand behind me the entire 5-7 minutes. They didn't say a thing until after I turned the light on, and that's when they asked, "Where did that guy go?" And I said, "Who?" They said, "Well, we saw a shadowy figure just above your head, standing behind you the entire time you were telling the story. We thought it was an animatronic or a crew member." And I said, "No, we don't have anyone down here. I think it's time for us to go." So have fun, take a few moments to explore. I'll be up in the lounge.